They may be different locations, but it will still all be in the same world, and they will be connected to each other as well.
So there is a chance that Tom Holland as Spider-Man will pop up somewhere
There's
over
a
there?
chance.
There's always a chance.
There's always a chance.
What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with another video on Spider-Man back in the MCU. But don't worry, guys, I'm tackling this from a much different angle. And there are a number of reasons why I still think the deal is there. Maybe. But what is interesting is, as you know, apparently Apple is buying, Spider-Man. But then at the same time, it says Netflix could be buying Sony, and a bunch of other companies could be buying Sony. So we're going to get into this video very soon. But what is interesting, guys, is it also says Amazon, Apple, and Netflix. But what is interesting, guys, is if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to never miss any videos. We're giving away a PS4 Pro with Spider-Man Game of the Year edition on PS4 or an Xbox One X with Gears of War 5. If we ever hit the 100,000 subscriber mark, which used to mean you get the verification on YouTube, but that's not the case anymore. So why I think there could be some precedence to this deal is because everyone's like, yeah, they're denying it. So let's go over history. Let's go over what happens in TV stuff, etc. So there's a crossover on the CW called Crisis on Infinite Earth over the CW Arrowverse shows, and everyone's been denying that Tom Welling from, Smallville was going to be in it. He kept saying, I've not been addressed. No one's contacted me. Then it comes out today that it's part of the crossover. So just because no one's officially talking about it, just because the official websites, just because Variety and Deadline and the websites that people think have validity and have accreditation are not reporting it, does not mean anything. And also you got to remember the Fox Disney deal. They denied that over and over again. They're like, it's not happening. Not happening. Boom, then it happens. So 99% of the time, things are not spoken about until they are official. So I do believe Spider-Man is going to stay in the MCU, and I've always said that on this channel. So essentially the story is the same story that's been going around for a long time. Apple has been buying Sony pictures for the last 5 years, but now because they got the big streaming service that's just about to pop with the Jason Momoa being headlining one of the TV series, they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. So it's interesting. So the same thing also says Amazon and Netflix are going to come in. Netflix, I don't really think Netflix would come in because the problem with these three companies are Apple, Amazon, Netflix is if they do come out and buy Sony Pictures outright. Now, Sony Pictures is one division of the branch of Sony worldwide, so to speak, Sony Global. I mean, they could sell it off. The problem is if you do that, you are going to be losing your greatest attribute, which is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the most profitable franchise inside their own franchise. Now, if they do sell Sony Pictures off to one of these, obviously Sony cares about money. Every business wants to make money. Every business just wants to make as much money as possible. But the problem here is if a potential new company like Amazon, Apple, Netflix go, cool, we're going to buy Sony Pictures. You've lost Venom. You've lost Into Spider-Verse. You've lost Spider-Man. You've lost the Sinister Six. You've lost Kraven the Hunter. You've lost all the potential movies that you could make with doing so. So the best case scenario would be, and I still really do believe there is a deal on the table that will be accepted at some point. I really believe the deal is in the works. And I believe they will negotiate a deal. There will be a percentage. They will give access of all the characters to the MCU. As you know, a lot of people seem to think that Venom is going to be part of the crossover and Venom's going to be part of the deal now. Well, let's be honest, guys. If this deal happens, the post-credit scene, Norman Osborn, Oscorp building, it's all to do with that. So we're not just going to be getting Venom. We're not just going to be getting Kraven Hunter. we're not just going to be getting Warstu in your company to do voiceovers and be a voice acting for video games. No, you're not just going to get that. Okay, that's kind of a joke if you didn't get it. I was joking about that. But you're going to get the 900 plus characters they own. Literally everything linked to Spider-Man, except for maybe Jessica Drew. The kind of deal with that's a bit strange. But yeah, essentially, Sony would be stupid to sell Sony Pictures off because they know if they sell Sony, they lose Spider-Man. And why that's bad, right? But they wouldn't care because they wouldn't own it. But obviously Apple, Amazon, Netflix, they know the contract. If they buy Sony, if Sony sells, they lose Spider-Man. And that is their greatest attribute. You just got to look at Venom, over $700 million, which is quite a lot for a standalone movie with realistically Tom Hardy, Woody Harrison playing Carnage, who was kind of in it. So it is like you can't really buy Sony. That's why I don't believe Sony's up for sale, guys, because it makes no sense. What makes the most sense is, to let them have the deal they want. So according to a Lord of the Long Books, they're at a stalemate because Disney is in no hurry to make a new deal because potentially Apple, Amazon, Netflix are interested in buying Sony Pictures. And then they get Spider-Man back for free without paying a cent. Now, guys, this will be, I know I said this will be like the last video that I'm going to be making on it, but I just need to clarify why it makes no sense for Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Warstu to buy Sony. I mean, it does make sense if you're a Marvel fan like me, but I'm thinking about the investor, the person that's going to buy the company. It literally, chronologically, in no world does it make any sense for anyone to buy Sony unless there is a deal, they can come to terms and agreements with Marvel where they get Spider-Man. But no, that will not happen. Like I say, the only thing going for Sony is Spider-Man. So if you sell Sony Pictures to any company, then Sony Pictures loses all its credibility. You got to look at Men in Black, the reboot. It didn't do very well. It really didn't do any well. The only reason Sony Pictures is viable and is making a lot of money, it's not making a lot of money. I mean, $1 billion for Far From Home. It looks like a lot, but you got to take away marketing, you got to take away wages, you got to take away production cost, cinema cut, and then probably you're left with say $400-500 million. If you do your research, Sony Pictures actually made a loss in the first quarter. So, according to Variety, the most reliable website in the world, guys, Sony Picture reduced first quarter. They lost $68 million in the first quarter of this year. Sony Pictures Entertainment made a slightly smaller loss of $68 billion in the 3 months between April and June, the first quarter of the financial year. Now, obviously, this was posted in June, and obviously now they made $1 billion, with Spider-Man Far From Home. I mean, yes, they have recuperated a lot of things, but it's not particularly performing that well. So like I said, guys, if you do sell Sony Pictures off, or Apple, Microsoft, literally any company it wants to buy, all you're going to get is literally nothing. You'll get maybe the studios they own, the properties they own, the attributes they own, the IPs they own. But as we keep saying, guys, Spider-Man is their biggest revenue turnover. But obviously Sony's not losing money overall, because you got to think, obviously, Spider-Man, PS4 game, PlayStation has sold over 100 million units. So it is pretty interesting, but Sony's IP isn't very strong in the sense if you're going to sell it. I mean, yes, they've got a bunch of organizations and I guess you could say movies they've released that do well, but there's nothing on the scalability of Spider-Man. So if they just want to get rid of it because it's not making much money, I mean, it's making money, but it's not making as much money as, say, a bigger company, but it's hard to compare them to that. So the best case scenario would be that Spider-Man, Venom, Sinister 6, Warstu, we're all coming home to Marvel. Seriously, guys, I do not believe any article that says that Sony Pictures will sell unless they are making a loss, which are not making a loss. They've had 3 movies, Spider-Man, Far From Home, Into Spideyverse, and Venom that have pretty much made decent money, but does that recuperate the money they lost on Men in Black, etc.? It's just very interesting that all of a sudden, every single website is sourcing one website, which is We got this cupboard.com, but it is coming from Lord of the Long Box, which has got some stuff right. I'm not saying the validity and the precedence of what they're saying is wrong. It just doesn't really make any sense to sell. That's why Marvel's in no rush, because Marvel knows if Sony Pictures gets sold, then the rights get defaulted. But as I said before, Tom Welling was denying at Expo, saying he's not being contacted. And then the news breaks today that Smallville Superman, who never actually became Superman, is going to be in Crisis on Infinite Earth. Let's hope they can get the real Superman there. Henry Cavill, yes, he is the real Superman. Everyone else are frauds. So let me know, guys, down below. Do you believe what I'm saying, that Sony won't be sold? So Spider-Man is not safe until a new deal is done, and a new deal will be done. It will go down either one way. They make Spider-Man 3 without Marvel, and then they're going to have to go begging back to Marvel after their own movie flops, or I don't know. Just let me know down below, guys. I would love to know what you guys think. But guys, Sony is not going to sell Sony Pictures because no one will buy it. Why would you buy a company that is known for Spider-Man if they're going to lose their rights the second they sell Sony Pictures off? Because Apple would not want to buy Sony without Spider-Man. Netflix would not want to buy Sony without Spider-Man. Amazon would not want to buy Sony without Spider-Man. It's their only IP that financially does pretty well. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment. I know what some people are going to say, but Warstu, you said this yesterday. I know, but there's more and more people talking about it. We talk about relevant stories here. It's all anyone wants to talk about is, but what about Spider-Man? So I'm going to say the Sinister Six, Venom, Spider-Man, and Warstu are all coming back to Marvel very, very soon. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll catch you in another video very soon. Catch you later.